Now then, okay. It's been a while since I have done this. I'm going to put all the ships released in the previous year onto a tier list. And yes, I kinda got delayed today, so instead of a video, I'm making a live stream and I'm doing this. So I guess I should probably start. We have quite a few vehicles here. I hope I did get all of them. But let's start with the first. And the S tier for me is a ship that either super overperforms in its role or performs well in its role and actually can perform other roles as well. And of course, the first ship here has to be the Hornet Mark II F7A, the military behemoth of a medium sized ship. I am not really a fan of what they have made with this ship because it's overperforming all the other ships. It is definitely a good ship. I mean, even the Hornet Mark 1 F7A was a pretty good ship. But this one is just, it requires some kind of downside or some kind of balance because it just overperforms. It has, I believe it was two size 3s instead of two size 2s, which the Hornet Mark 1 F7A has. Perhaps I'm wrong. But that is quite a significant upgrade, even though it is one size for two weapons. Okay, so next up we have the Racer. Is this the Racer? Yeah, this is the Mirai Pulse racing variant. I did try both of them. It has one very significant and beautiful thing for me. It is super compact. You can fit it basically on every ship which has even a bit of space. It does not have weapons, it is not very durable, but it is fast and it is small. So I think for me, the Racer would actually go. I mean, there aren't many ground races, that's definitely a downside. But I love it. I love these small little racers. I think I would actually put this one into C tier for the time being because it's small, it's compact, it fits everywhere. But there aren't truly that many races unless you're part of a community which creates these races and performs in them. And it's a hover bike, it can go over water, which is also a beautiful addition. What's up next? Oh, we have the Atlas. This single person mech suit. Well, not really a mech suit. It's a working man's suit. And if I remember correctly, it didn't have any modules for time being. But the person inside it was vulnerable. And I would really. I mean, you can pull containers from really far away distances, and you can equally place them from your position at really far locations which have the grid. Only real downside with this is it's blocking the view. It is slow. But other than that, if you have a really big ship and actually want to store things, move things around, it might not be that bad of a machine to use. I think since it is only a utility item and it serves purpose for the really big ships to lift containers, move them around, manual loading, perhaps I should put it somewhere in the C tier as well. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's great, it's beautiful, perhaps even in P tier. But at the moment, actually we do have slight use for it. We can transfer cargo. Okay, fine. Let's put it B tier because we can use it at jobs, although it is slow, and it's probably best at what it does for time being. But I can perform equally well with a big tool. Let's be honest now. Okay, so this was the Citizen Con. I don't even remember the name of it. It was the transport variant next to the builder, which is in the works at the moment. This transport variant I don't really like. Don't get me wrong, I like the idea of a truck being able to carry containers. I just think we have few problems here. First of all, it can only fit 4 containers. Why not make it 8? You put a beautiful big container on top of it, just fit it perfectly. I don't know the reason why we would need to have 4 on this one. And instead of this vehicle, I would like there to be a real truck able to carry long containers. Not this little short Oompa Loompa. So I think I'm actually going to put it into T tier. I mean, it is a ground vehicle, it can carry containers, it is good for that. But at the moment, it doesn't really serve a purpose. Why would you put your containers on that? And why not just directly deliver them? Perhaps when its product gets released and there actually is some building, it will get some more value. But for time being, I don't think it is worth that much. What do we have next? Oh, the Mirai, the Mirai Guardian, the regular variant. Okay. I like what the ship is. It's a really compact. It has habitation areas. And it's got 2 really big weapons. Because of that, I mean, actually, it's got, I believe it was those slow shooting laser repeaters. If you swap those out and actually get some high rate of fire ones, this can actually be a really good ship. I'm not sure if it's A tier because it is a heavy fighter, it is slow, its focus is combat, and the specific combat it is meant for doesn't really 100% exist. Sure, you can do your missions, your mercenary, your bounty, all of those. But it's really meant to focus on bigger ships, and I'm not sure it's up for the task for the time being. Plus, yeah, I'm gonna put it in B tier because let's do the next Guardian right away. Where's the... Okay, here. The reason the Mirai Guardian QI will go to the A tier is because it's upgraded variant of the regular Guardian. Yes, it loses some maneuverability, it loses some speed, but it gets the quantum interdiction device, and most of the other stats remain the same. And that's why I don't see any reason why you would need a standard Guardian when you can have the Guardian QI. Perhaps if they would make a little twist, like one has the EMP and other would have the quantum interdiction device, that could be really cool. You would have 2 ships focusing a bit on different annoying elements of the combat. But for the time being, I don't know why anyone would pick the Guardian over Guardian QI. Fine, perhaps they want more maneuverability, but I don't see that as a too valid of an option. What is next? What is this? It's the Intrepid, of course. The Intrepid. Well, that was a bit of a downside. That was a bit of a downer. Don't get me wrong, I like starters. I think they're good, like you go exploring, you have fun, you are solo, you have your habitation, you have a little bit of cargo. I like that it has special areas in the back. That is beautiful. It's got the accommodations in the center. It's even got a corridor, and probably the best part about it, it has stairs. But that single size 4 is not enough, even with the big amount of health the ship has. I think they kind of misfired with this one. It has everything a starter should want. Okay, fine, perhaps it could use another shield. But I think it is missing 2 weapons, like even 2 size 1s would make it into a pretty good ship for starters. The single size 4, I don't think it is enough to be the ship I would want it to be. Having two size ones under the wings, even, I mean, size ones are rather weak weapons. But it would give some extra firepower because there are so many other stars you can pick from, which can pull out more DPS. Of course, they don't want to give it a size 5 weapon, so I think that would be an ideal solution. But where does it belong? Oof. It's either C or B. And I'm actually leaning on C because it's got only one shield. And if a starter player starts out, he's probably gonna lose wings, gonna get some serious damage. And it's not super fast, it's not super great to turn. It's got that big weapon, but it's only one weapon. And there are so many other fighters, or even other starters, which I think outperform its combat focus. I think it is missing a small piece, but it has so many good things. It's really hard choice. I kind of want to put it in B because it's supposed to be a starter. It offers everything to a player a starting player wants. But could it be B or C? Oh, it's always so hard. I'm gonna leave it C because I feel it is lacking slightly firepower. I mean, I'm not gonna rank starters super high because starters are the kind of ships which don't have any kind of extremely specific focus. They try to perform a bit well at several things, or so. Okay then, what do we have? This is the MPUV tractor. Good news. It's best of the types of ships it is from, the type of group it is from. It has storage in the back. It even has a tractor beam in the back, if I remember correctly. And it's got a tractor beam in the front. The problem at the moment is you can't really move when the tractor beam in the front is being used. And that's, I mean, you can move, but you gotta be waiting for your container to move as well. You gotta like stop, and the container moves then the distance you have your tractor beam set at. Whew. It's best of the MPUV tractors, 100%. Sorry, MPUV vehicles, because we have the transport and we have the cargo variant. Transport being utterly useless at the moment. Cargo variant, well, at least it can lift boxes. It's basically a fork. I mean, this is better. This is a forklift with a tractor beam. The thing is, there isn't much use for this ship. I don't really see the need for it for time being. And because of that, I kind of want to... I'm gonna put it into C tier. Because it is not ideal tool, but just because it is the best of its series. And it actually performs at the role it does, although there is no need for you to have this ship. Even if you have a really big ship, there isn't directly any need for you to have this, unless you're managing it with a full crew. Not even full crew, with a crew of a couple of players at least. Lifting boxes of some area. I think it actually might get some real value with the Drake Ironclad. Like, you open up the top, items can be lifted, and it suddenly becomes immensely valuable. I think that can be a way it will perform. That's like the best case scenario I can imagine. You open up on top, and you can actually lift them really easily. Just pick them up and put them down. Next up, oh god, Polaris. It is immensely powerful. The problem is, it is extremely powerful for time being. It is extremely dangerous, but it requires a crew. Its torpedoes are magnificent, its turrets are incredible, and the ship itself is just amazing. I have had the pleasure of being a loader and a gunner, and this ship is just a beast. Because it has no competition, at least for the time being, it doesn't have anything that can really compete with it because we don't have that many military capital class ships. We have some industrial exploration, touring, but we don't have anything to compare this to. But then again, seeing how well it performed against Idris, I mean, it still took a while to bring it down. But the torpedoes, the damage, the weapons, and even in group effort, actually can bring down other ships of itself, other Polarises as well. This is a good question. It's either A tier or S tier. And I'm actually leaning on S tier because there is nothing to contest with this if you can man it. But then again, how many Polarises do you know which are manned? Yeah, exactly. If you can fully crew it, maximize its potential, I think it is S tier, at least for the time being. If we get another capital ship, something that can dethrone it, fight against it, even the defense point cannons actually diminish it a little. But that's why you sent several. What is next? Next is the Saber Peregrine. Is it Peregrine? Yeah, it's Peregrine, the racer. Ship nobody wanted. I like the other variants of this ship. Everyone wanted the Saber Raven variant of this ship, or alteration of it. Instead, we got this big racer for a light fighter style, or somewhere between light and medium fighter style ship. It's fast. I'm gonna give it that. It's also big, and that's what bothers me. I have raced with it. I think I did like 4 races with it, and I utterly hated flying every tight race there was between the buildings, between the industrial works. It just bothered me so much. I was able to receive pretty high speed, but then again, I might be a bit poor racer. I mean, I perform well with Mirai Furies, but yeah. Okay, for me, it is unpleasant to fly the ship. I think it might be a long distance racer. Not to say a drag racer, but something that does a big lap of sorts. And that's what it is fast. It didn't have weapon. I mean, it performs at racing, but it doesn't perform great, and that's what bothers me. I'm gonna need to put this in C tier. I mean, I'm sure there's someone who likes it, someone who uses it, and someone who has actually performed in it. But I I have performed so much better in other ships, and I think it is really big for some races. It might be ideal for others, which have a bit more open space, but in tight corners, tight turns, I wouldn't really use it. Although I remember it accelerated pretty fast. So what's up next? The Terrapin Medic. Ooh, this is a beast. I think this goes into A tier. Only reason I can't put it into S tier, it's not really that combat capable. It's got 2 size 2s. It's got health equal to a constellation. And it's got a tier 2 medbed inside. And that is the best medbed ships will be able to have. If I remember correctly, with the current intent, the idea is to have 20-kilometer range around this medbed for you to have a respawn option. Currently, all the ship's medbeds provide that the respawn option, but in the end, the size 2s will be exclusive, or tier 2s. if it would actually have some weapons, this thing would be a beast. Why not make a gunboat next time? Like just remove all the back and put one big turret there. It's still beautiful to see that they had this kind of a interesting use for Terrapin, because it's not really a combat ship. It's a scouting ship, was the original one. And this one became a medic because it suited to fill that role. I think it is decent, but I don't think you want to really perform in combat with that ship. And the medbed it's a bunker runner's wet dream, something like that. What do we have next? Oh, the Firebird. I really dislike missile gameplay, but seeing the direction we are going, I might actually like this ship. They improved its missile rack. I think it was originally 12 missiles, now it is 24, which actually makes it quite a bit better. Because you want a missile focused ship to have at least 10 plus, maybe even 20 plus missiles. Every time I think back to the Talon, well, I don't remember what specific type it was, but it was Shrieker, right? That used the missiles. Every time I think back to that ship, I'm thinking it is missing something. And this is kind of on the same level. And seeing the new cost changes, missile changes, and everything which has happened, I'm not sure 100% where to put this. Because you can have some really nice missiles. You can have missiles which focus on... You can have missiles which spread off, the focus on cross-section, infrared, or electromagnetic signatures. And I think the most fun I actually had was have missiles which split into 10 small missiles and actually cause some damage. But I'm really concerned because for the time being, they have increased the cost of missile replenishment, which just diminishes the value of this ship. I think it would be a solid B tier if we would get some nice ships, if we would get some nice missile replenishment for these ships. But at the moment, I'm gonna put it in C. Because missile gameplay requires you to have reasonably good access to missiles as well. You do have 24 missiles, but you just don't have enough to decimate your opponents. Your opponents will always have enough flares, enough chaff to mess with you. And if they use it properly, or even maneuver properly, they can avoid quite a bit of missiles. As a support role, this ship might actually be good. You are in a fleet of other ships like, let's say there are Gladiuses, there are Hornets, and you're just camping from the side and coming in, firing a couple of hot missiles. That's the way I think it could work. Okay, what's up next? Next is the Hornet F7C Mark II. You can actually upgrade it pretty well. It doesn't come as close as the F7A Mark II. I think it will have slightly smaller ball turret on top if you change up the equipment. And in default it comes with a storage area on top, which I guess is fine for civilian variant. The downside really is with the F7A that you need this ship before you can get that ship, at least for the time being. But it actually performs really well. I remember before F7A Mark II was released, this ship was also used quite dominantly, as it had a lot of firepower. I believe it didn't have that great shields. Or maybe I'm wrong with that. It didn't have something. Something wasn't up to the... Something was below military standard, excluding the weapons. Something wasn't up to that standard, but it still performed quite well in combat. And I still think it actually deserves a good spot on the A tier. Because you can make this ship work. You might not get the Hornet military variant, but you can make the civilian variant work pretty well. Next up, we have the Zeus. This is the Explorer variant. Was it ES maybe? Probably, yeah. The Zeus ES, the Zeus Mark II ES, or Zeus 2 ES. I think they slightly went wrong with this ship. They have way too much accommodations area for this exploration variant, and too little storage. Don't get me wrong, I like what the ship has. I like the size 4 weapons. I like the sleek look. I'm not really a fan of a small health pool, but it compensates. But it compensates very well with, I believe it was 4 size 2 shields, and that is really fine. It can regenerate quite a bit, and it can withstand in a fight. It does have some cargo space, but it's not the best. I think this one belongs in a B tier. It does have a turret below as well. It is decent, but it's not something I would use. Perhaps when exploration becomes a bit more interesting, these ships with the big fuel tanks and scanning and other elements can perform better at their roles. And let's do the Zeus CL as well. This transport variant is actually extremely good. I believe it has 1 less shield than the ES, but almost everything else should be the same. And it has, was it 100 or over 100 units of storage? It may not be the most ideal ship for combat, but it can perform in it, not being a relatively, not really a big ship, being a medium-sized ship, but still being capable of doing combat and having decent amount of cargo space. So I think it might actually, I'm going to put it in 80. Actually, it's good. It's hard because it has the kind of space most players want on a medium-sized transport. It has that huge amount of space. But it does not have the durability other similar ships share. But it tries to compensate with shields. I still think it is pretty good, and if you play it well enough and compensate with shields and maneuver and position and do everything well, it might actually belong into the A tier. Perhaps, considering it's a medium-sized ship capable of carrying so much cargo. So it's kind of a rare ship compared to other similar-sized ships, or its storage is kind of a rare amount. I think it is good. I think it is A. It is really good, but it's not extremely great. It can be better. It could be better, but you would need another player. You would need. Personally, I think it could use like a couple of small extra weapons. But I guess that's what the turret is for, so I can't complain. If it would have slightly more firepower, it probably would be S tier. So this is the Starlance Max. Ooh. I love the Max. It's got firepower, it's got turrets, it's got accommodations, it's got even engineering bay. It's got everything a player might want. Only thing that really bothers me with this ship is the low amount of cargo grid positioned at the rear ramp, or at the rear storage with the entrance of the rear ramp. It really bothers me because that central area is such a wasted space. You could fit another 60 units of cargo in there if there would be a grid, perhaps more. And that is what really bothers me about this. I mean, it still has quite a good bit of cargo, 224 units if I remember correctly. But it's not something super great. It is a transport variant. It's hard to put this one as well. It's definitely an A tier ship. It's got turrets. It actually got pilot even is controlling. I believe it was 4 size 4s or 4 size 5. I think it was 4 size 4s. So it was a. It did lack with the health, I believe. And the 2 turrets positioned on top are probably its biggest minus. One should be below. But because it has such heavy weapons, it can actually perform quite well in a fight against other big ships, at least in PvE scenarios. It's a really hard one. It's either A tier or S tier, because I think Constellation would overperform, but Constellation doesn't have those big turrets. It's a really hard one for me. Definitely an A tier ship. But could it go above? You know what? I think it's a bit in the S tier, because the pilot has such firepower, it has such storage, it has accommodations, it's got the elements for crew gameplay. It is meant to be this combat zone transport ship, cargo transport, and that's what I think is ideal for an S tier ship. It's perfectly fit in the role, which is unfortunately not in the game. But you can still do cargo and combat with this, where it will perform and actually be efficient. Okay, what do we have next? We have 4 more. We have the Hornet Tracker, Mark II Tracker. Unfortunately, the tracking, or the scouting really isn't in the game, at least for the time being. So I cannot put this too high. But since it is a Hornet, I believe we can swap. I haven't really flown this ship. I have flown the Hornet Ghost, but I haven't flown this. So this is a bit of a theory at the moment. I believe we can swap out the module on top of it for now and still perform quite well in combat. But it comes with that radar module, which I think for the time being it still does not serve any significant purpose for scouting or scanning objects or items in the space. Because we can swap out the weapons and actually bring it to the level of Hornet Mark II civilian variant, I think we should put it in the same bracket. So an A tier ship if built correctly. And let's do the other Hornet as well. This is the Ghost. And what's really amazing about this ship is because stealth is broken. In PvE, well, don't really see its effect. But in PvP, in the team battles, you can actually build into stealth. If you get all the right components, all the right modules, you can have a really stealthy ship that players will lose the sight of really fast. It's definitely an A tier ship, because it utilized the stealth gameplay, but it's not. It might actually be an S tier because I haven't really flown it that hard or that specifically, but I know you can build its stealth to be better than some of the light fighters, which might use all the stealth components but not be focused on stealth. So you have a medium-sized fighter which focuses on stealth and can be sneakier than some of the light fighters which are not meant for stealth but could focus with the stealth components and not really make it. It's definitely an A tier, so I'm not sure about this. I have it, but I haven't really played it, so I can't say how well I would perform it in PvP. But I've seen some players really pull off some mad maneuvers, and I think even I was lost once or twice when there were a couple of guys coming after me. Okay, then we have, this is the Pulse Hey, oh, this is the default pulse. I thought this was another variant. Oh, the default had the size 2 Gatlin below it, or was it laser Gatlin? And because it fits perfectly in everywhere, I think it's actually a B tier vehicle. It's got the combat capabilities. It can fit everywhere. Any ship that has space, it can basically fit in. It's still a hover bike. You can use it the same way you use the racing variant, but this one comes with a gun. And since there isn't that much ground racing, I think this is slightly above the racer. And so I would put it in B tier. That's probably for the best. Okay, and the Ursa Medic. Whew. I have only one question. Why would you need the default Ursa variant? Why not use the Medic? Because the Medic has almost all the same stats, all the same weapons, only difference being in the interior, where it has a med bed. It's got the driver, the co-pilot or co-driver, and a seat for the medic plus the med bed. So you got 4 spots basically. And fine. With the default Ursa, you do have like a troop transport, which can carry 6 players. This one, yeah, best case 4. But in most cases, the med bed is quite valuable. The firepower is the same, and you can try to press all the extra 2 players in there as well. It's definitely an A tier vehicle because of the med bed, combat effectiveness, and it being above. Hello there. And it being above the default variant. If it would get some downside, like traded off for, let's say, some health is traded off, weapons are traded off, it's made into a more civil vehicle and having less elements of the default Ursa, then I think it would be lower. But because it is such an excellent vehicle, I think it belongs in the A tier. It's not some super great vehicle, because in most cases, why would you need a ground vehicle? But as ground vehicles go, it's quite good. It's not something you're gonna fight others with, because the tank is gonna beat you. But you got all the same benefits, plus you got the medbed benefit. Only way it could pop into S tier, medbed tier 2. Probably with that at the moment. But I think most medbeds offer the respawn option for the time being. Still. Now, okay, so this is what I made. Whew. We got, in the S tier, we got the Hornet military variant, Hornet Mark II military variant, the Polaris, and Starlance and Max. Polaris, I mean, there are no contesters for the Polaris, so it's gonna remain there, at least for the time being. In the A tier, we got the Guardian QI, Terrapin Medic, all the other Hornets, Hornet Mark IIs, the transport variant of Zeus Mark II, or Zeus 2, and the Ursa Medivac. I think these are all pretty fine. I mean, yeah, sure, we can argue if you want, but this is my opinion, at least for the time being. And why the Guardian QI is here? Because it's better than the default Guardian. In the B tier, we had the Atlas, the Guardian, the Zeus ES, and the Mirai Pulse. These are your mediocre vehicles. Actually, they're even somewhat fine, they're good at what they can do, but you have better options for them, or in most cases. And why would you need them? Why would you need Atlas for the time being? You might want it, you might have a big ship for it, but you might also just bring a big tractor beam to assist you in loading. Explorer, the Zeus Explorer has, I think, a bit too much accommodations and too little space. And the Racer, the Pulse, yeah, that's just better variant for the time being. In the C tier, we got the Pulse Racer, Intrepid, MPUV Tractor, Peregrine, and Firebird. Whew. The racing Pulse is here because it is small, it can fit everywhere, it's excellent, but there aren't too many ground races, and you often need to perform in those races with a community. Intrepid, because I think it lacks some firepower at least, or shields or something. MPUV tractor, it is best of the MPUV vehicles, but it's not something I would. I don't really see need. Oh god, I'm not used to this. I'm not used to streams. But the MPUV tractor is something you don't need in most cases. As I said, I think it might actually earn its keep when we get a vehicle like the Drake Ironclad, where we can open up the top and actually move the containers, and this ship could be invaluable. And why the Sabres? Well, Racer, it's a bit too big, and the Firebird, missile focus, which I don't think missile focus ships are ideal at the time being, and you need to replenish them, and that's going to cost you quite a bit. And that last one, oh, I can't remember its name. It's some kind of a transport of the future builder ship. I think it is not something you need. It's not something anyone needs. Perhaps when building comes to game, it might be worth something, but I still think it could at least fit the 8 units of cargo instead of the 4, because there's nothing stopping it on the top. Then again, I haven't really played it since they showed it off, and it doesn't really seem something anyone should want to own. Instead, I think there should be a proper truck. There's a truck where we could load on the biggest container, and that would just be fine. Why would we need this? Why would we need this small little transport vehicle? Hey, but perhaps there is someone who likes it. So this was my tier list of the vehicles released last year. Yeah, have I done live stream before? I don't think so. I am not really used to making these videos, or at least in this active way. But hey, it was something beautiful, it was something nice, it was something interesting to try, and perhaps I'll do something similar again. But for the time being, these are my arguments, these are my picks for the respective tiers. If you disagree, I would surely like to hear why, and what you think, where it would fit, and how you have used it that fits it better, or has made it its perspective a bit better than I described. And other than that, don't forget to like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.